So what COVID has done is something that probably a lot of years couldn't do. So it has pushed the companies over the technology tipping point, and it has just transformed the businesses forever. So when lockdown started, companies had to sort of innovate to stay relevant, and they didn't have any more human touch points. They couldn't meet personally. They couldn't meet their customers, especially from the people who are in sales. And so now what they had to do, they had to do something to remain relevant. Relevant in a sense to also sustain their businesses, also to keep motivating their employees, and also to connect with the new customers. And so this is a very interesting study by McKinsey, and it shows very interestingly, the difference between the expected and the actual days that was required to sort of bring a change in companies. And if you see increase in remote working or collaboration, so it's not that companies were not thinking on this point. Companies were thinking. A lot of companies were thinking of sort of going, making like a 2-day work from home culture or a 3-day work from home culture. A lot of companies was thinking of, migrating their assets to the cloud, but they had given sufficient time. They said, it's going to take about a year or maybe 2 years, and they had their all plans in place. But when COVID struck, everything went fast forward. And if you see, increase in remote working or collaboration from 454 expected days, it went to 10.5. And similarly, for migration of assets to cloud, companies had given a timeline of 547 days, but it just went under a month. So these results show that some significant lessons can be drawn from the steps that organizations have taken. And digital transformation has actually played a key role in helping organizations work more seamlessly, even from remote. And COVID has hastened it, and it has hastened it to a point that now there's no looking back. So digital transformation is not magic. It's not something that you can just sprinkle over your existing business and it's going to change, it's going to give you profit. These are just set of processes. They are some set of methodologies tried and tested, and also tools. So they're a combination of processes, methodologies, and tools. And what they do is they optimize, they'll help you to optimize certain activities. Say, for example, providing differentiated service. So today, what a lot of companies are doing is they provide different service to different people. So for instance, your Amazon homepage that you see is definitely different from what your friend sees. And so you have personalized recommendations, you have personalized service that is based upon your history of buying. So what you bought, based on that, you'll get those preferential treatment. And that's going to be different. So today you can't imagine that everybody is going to get the same recommendations. That won't work. Another thing could be increasing performance. If you are a company, you have a product and you sell it, you want to increase that performance, you want to increase your sales, you will have to put in place certain methodologies, certain metrics, certain ways in which you have to do that. It's not like you're going to think, okay, maybe let's hire more BDRs. So BDRs are business development representatives, or let's increase the cold calls that we do to different people. That won't help. You have to have a sustained methodology, something that becomes a process, and then people can follow that. And something like increasing power, the reach power to both employees and customers. So for any product company, including ours, you have to have a connection with both the customers and the employees, because only then employees are going to speak the language of the company to the customers. And you have to make sure that there's a connection between the company and the customers. So customers, they feel important, they feel looked after. And so all these things, they constitute one portion of digital transformation. And if I were to give an example to understand it more concretely, let's say you work in an HR department, and there's a big issue of attrition in your company. So what people are doing is they're leaving the company within 2 years of joining, and that has become it's affecting the company, because by the time you get some experience, you leave the company. Now, as a person who wants to drive digital transformation, you're going to sit down with the leadership, you're going to sit down with CEOs and maybe your HODs and everybody. And you're going to understand and study why this is happening, why people are leaving your company. You're going to take some data and you're going to see a pattern. And then you're going to bring out a probability of people who are more likely to leave. So what this will do is you can just approach the person whom you think has the most probability to leave, and you can start and understand what is sort of pushing him or her to leave, or what is the problem that he or she is facing, and hence you can work upon them. In the similar way, say you are a company and you have subscribers, and you see that people are churning, they're leaving their service. So again, you're going to sort of use some methodologies and tools to understand which customer has more probability of leaving, and so that you can approach them, you can understand the problem, and maybe offer them some benefits over others, and so on. So these are the ways in which companies, these are the main reasons why companies want to adopt digital technologies, and they want to automate the stuff so that they have more understanding of their customers, they have more understanding of the employees and of their products also. So this digital revolution has been occurring since the middle of the last century. And how you characterize it, it's actually a fusion of physical, biological, and digital spheres, and all of them have come together to form this digital revolution. Artificial intelligence is one such tool which can drive digital transformation. So it can help companies become more innovative, more flexible, and even more adaptive than ever. And sometimes you think AI is some magic wand which you're just going to, put out there, and everything will change what it is. And thanks to a lot of sci-fi movies around us, and we sometimes think, what is AI? A person? Is AI technology? What is AI? So I'll first give you the Wikipedia definition of AI. And in its crudest form and simplest form, AI is just a collection of different technologies, which when brought together can help machines to act with human-like intelligence. So the idea is to impart intelligence to computers itself so that they can take certain decisions on their own. Now, how this is interpreted in today, sometimes like this. Especially in sci-fi movies, artificial intelligence is shown with like some robots or some cyborgs who have some exceptional intelligence, and they might rule the world, they'll destroy the world, or things like that. So is this AI, and are we going to have robots all around us to help us in digital transformation? No. So robot and robotic intelligence is just one part of artificial intelligence. If you are to look at AI at its core, it is simple math. And I like to tell you, because since this is a topic of discussion, AI, so also a lot of people always think about what AI is and what it is. Is it an enigma? So I just like to just quash some of those misconceptions and give you a little idea into what actually AI is. So you've been using calculators. A lot of us use calculators, and calculators use conventional programming. Okay, normal programming, how it happens. So it's very simple. Say you want to add two numbers, say 2 and 3. You will input them, 2 and 3. And then you will also input the plus sign, because you want to tell the system that you want to add them, and you will get an answer equal to 5. So what happens is, you will give the data, say for instance 2 and 3. You're going to set a rule, which in this case is addition, and you'll get an answer that is 5. That's the output. And that's how programming takes place. And initially programming, of course, was to just automate a lot of stuff, because something that people would take a lot of time, computers could do very fast if you would supply the data and rules. But there were some use cases where it wasn't that easy to identify what the rules would be. And so what AI, artificial intelligence, does is, it also uses data. And so say again, we pass in 2 and 3, and then we pass in the output, what we expect the answer, and which is 5. And what this machine or the problem or the algorithm will do is it will come up with the rules. And it will come up with a rule what it thinks best maps the input to the output. And in this case, it would be addition. But how can businesses use artificial intelligence? Of course, so image recognition is another industry, complete industry that works on it. But I'll give you a very simple example to understand how you can use this. So say this is a person, Bob, and Bob wants to buy a car. Now what he does is he calculates how much he needs to save every month in order to buy a car. So he goes through all the ads on the newspaper, on the websites, and he sort of creates a table. And in table, he writes that if he has to buy a new car, he needs to save about $20,000. If he needs to buy a year-old car, he needs to save $90,000, and so on. So now, if you see here, Bob has actually started seeing a pattern. So he says that the price of the car is actually dependent upon the age. And it starts dropping $1,000 for every year. And this is essentially that he's converted this problem into an AI problem. And now the thing is, now if he knows how old a car is, he will know how much money he has to save. But the real life problems are not that simple, because there'll be a lot of other things. There'll be like manufacturing dates, there'll be dozens of other options, some technical conditions of the cars, seasonal demand spikes, etc., etc. So Bob will not be able to put everything into his head. And this is where computers come into play. So here we need computers. We need their memory, because computers are very good at doing the same thing again and again, repetitive tasks. So the computer will do the math for us. And so what we'll do is, let's go to the computational way here. We'll provide machine some data, and then we'll ask the machine to find out hidden patterns. So Bob was able to find one pattern. He was able to find the pattern that the price is related to the age, but there could be so many others. And we asked the machine to do that for us. And that is how you convert a normal problem into a machine learning problem. Saying, especially in the data analytics world, that in God we trust, all others must bring data. So this is because, during the earlier part of the 20th century, many companies used to take all the business decisions based on their gut feelings. And even we remember, we also said that this person has about 20 years of experience in industry, has 30 years of experience. And they would just say, okay, you do this, especially even in the stock market, people would say, sell these stocks, buy these stocks. And of course, experience has value, but today that experience also needs to be backed with data. Opinion-based decision-making can be very risky and often leads to incorrect decisions. So one of the primary objectives for any person who's in analytics is to improve this decision-making quality using data. So you should have data to back all your decisions. Data literacy is of like paramount importance, and it's important to actually make people aware of the importance of data, and also establish processes and resources capable of connecting the data, restructuring it, structuring it, and then analyzing it. Companies understand the value of investments in innovative technologies, today. But then they also have to understand that they'll also have to invest in technologies that analyze data more efficiently and quickly. You cannot wait for years before you actually analyze your data and get results. Time is of essence everywhere. So you also have to invest in technologies to actually wrangle this data and bring certain important outcomes from here. So there are certain questions that you need to ask. Things like, how can data improve my customer's experience? So you have to sit down and answer some of these questions. Should I need to hire somebody, or should I need to start something from the scratch? Should I invest in already automated tools that are available in the market? Should I invest in a database? How will I actually work with the data? Or should I go for cloud? Should I work on-premise, or should I use cloud technologies? And how do I even know that I have enough data to gather intelligence? So these are the questions which have to be, asked again and again. So whenever you start with a project, this will come, you need to answer them, you have to find out the solutions, and this will give you a way of how you have to proceed with the business problem. Initially, companies would only do mass branding. So you remember most of the branding used to be done in newspapers, and there used to be flyers there, which used to be the same thing for everybody. Now, companies have gone towards real-time individualized experience. Experience is different for everybody. Then it used to be daily risk analysis. So companies used to do risk analysis every day. Now it's real time. If you talk about healthcare, there used to be mass treatment, same treatment for everybody. Now you have personalized healthcare. So it's a new domain that has come up in healthcare. And then again, customer service silos. Today you have personalized quality of service. It's different based upon how you've interacted with them before. It's different. So these are some of the transformational stories, some of them, not all. A real life example, because I always feel that you can make a concept more concretely understood when you have some story with it. And also you should also know that what are the ways in which companies are actually using it. So this is a very interesting way in which this company called ENGIE, it sort of just, did a 180-degree shift into the way it was conducting business. So it's a French B2B energy giant, and ENGIE. And it sort of just went complete transformation by focusing on 3 Ds, which is decarbonize, decentralize, and digitize. So what ENGIE actually is, it's a French energy giant, and it sort of powers the houses, powers and supplies power, electric power to the, and it was doing it for many years. But then what it did was it combined a lot of solutions, tech solutions like AI, blockchain, IoT, etc. And it created sort of a comprehensive ecosystem. And so it rebranded itself. So now it has rebranded as zero carbon transition as a service. So we've heard of things like software as a service and things like that. It has rebranded as zero carbon transition as a service. So now it's not only just supplying energy, which it was doing and which it still is doing, it is also helping customers use this energy in a more sustainable way. And so what it helps customers is it helps them identify any wastage in electricity or power that they're doing. And sometimes as consumers, we are not aware of that. So, and now clients, they pay for it. Enterprise clients, they started paying them for this service. They are already paying for the power that it has been supplying to them, but now also paying for this service. And because it helps them to detect any hidden energy saving opportunities that they have. And so it's a win-win situation for the clients also, because they can save if there's some leakage. And one of you could say a great example was that they have their, again, analytics team, and they were able to trace Starbucks' excessive energy consumption. So Starbucks, they approached them with the problem that, they're having some excessive energy consumption, and they're not understanding why it's happening. And what they found was there's just single coffee machine in their 5,000 US outlets, which is responsible for that. So that in this way, a company which was just supplying power at one point of time, today is helping customers become more aware of how they're using it, and also helping them to become zero carbon entities. So that's a great example in which how you can rebrand your businesses also. With a holistic transformation strategy, AI can create wonders. So you don't need to focus on the technology. Don't just focus that, you have to have AI in your company because everybody is having. Think about use case which you can transform. Always start with the business need. Start with the problem that you are currently facing, and then use AI as a tool to solve that. So artificial intelligence should means to what digital transformation is, what electricity has meant to humanity in the past, and it has the potential to sort of change it and give it a different outlook. And so its disruptive power is so great that we are moving towards a stage where digital products will become more and more intelligent in the future and will help customers make better choices. And so the biggest challenge as of today for all of us is to manage all these changes and also deal with the transformation in a structured way. So we could start with investing and developing skills of the current workforce, upskill the people, and so that they're able to adapt to these new changes that are coming. These are not something that we need to be scared of. And AI and machine learning are not technologies which have come from some other planet. These are here to help us create more meaningful business and help to solve some of the problems that you're facing. And it also has the potential to sort of provide solutions to the most pressing problems today, especially in sectors like healthcare, education. But we have to be aware of how we use it and what our end or ultimate goal is.
I want to get your, opinion on this particular aspect about what is responsible AI and how we can ensure that, these kind of questions that keep arising about AI. I mean, how can some of them be put to rest?
So, see, AI, because today I think AI is being used a lot for taking decisions on our behalf, and so again, it is very important to make sure that it is not biased, because if using AI to take decisions, so for instance, it happened in Amazon also for they've automated the HR thing, and it was just flagging of the female resumes. He's not even accepting it. And so one of the problem, so initially when AI started the field, it was just considered as a black box. So people were just getting predictions and they're very happy that, now they're getting answers and pretty fast. But soon it started happening that sometimes a lot of reasons for it. So one of the main reason is also that sometimes the data that we put into it, because it learns from data. And so the data sometimes you put is actually inherently biased even before. So if you see that a lot of algorithms are today being created by people in the West, and say if they've created an algorithm based on image recognition, and so what they'll do is they'll use all the data of white people or there. So if you're going to use the same algorithm in India, it's going to give you very different results, and it will not work because we need something that has been trained on local system. So that it's because it's all about that you feed in data, it learns from the data. So if you create a language model on English and then you use it on Hindi, you will have disastrous effects. And so one of the main reason is sometimes the data is also inherently biased. And it's like I'll give a small example. A lecture was going on, and the teacher asked people to sort of think of a shoe. And what happened is, when most of the people, when they thought of sneakers, and there were hardly like 5 people who thought of like stilettos and heels. So we are actually biased ourselves. And when we use that to create data, that is also biased. And so we have to put things in place where we have to address the bias in the data in the first place itself, before even feeding it to the model. And for that, they are explainable systems, which is a part of responsible AI, where you have to explain your decisions. And because today we have GDPR in place, things like GDPR, and now what happens is, once we get a prediction from the model, then we use those systems and tools to actually tell us why the system actually gave us this answer. And then we start looking at it, and then the system will tell us why this reached on this conclusion, and then as humans we take decisions. So very important concept of AI is to put human in the loop. You have to put human in the loop. You can't do away with humans. And we have to make use of explainable systems and interpretable systems, which are used after a model has been trained, to tell, why do you think the computer thinks this person will return a loan or not? Why do you think this person will have cancer or not? And so if as a consumer, if I show the person, okay, see, say the person is a patient, and I use AI to detect whether he'll get cancer or not, and then I show him, look, the system says that there's 70% chance that you'll get cancer, 30% chance you'll not get, and 70% because of this, because you have history of illness, you have high BP, you have this and that, then the patient can see, and then it can start trusting the model. So AI, and then we need to include explainability, and then the data we collect, the way we collect data, we have to make sure that data collection is also not biased.
If I am a student, I am an MBA student, and I want to build a career in digital transformation or AI. Now, digital transformation in itself sounds quite tech, and I am a manager. I'm going to turn out to be a manager after I graduate. So how can I maneuver this landscape? What are the options and opportunities for me?
So this is a very good question. So actually, the best part of data science in this field is that it is not a typical engineering type of a field where you have to have 4 years of undergraduate and then do. It's a very diverse field, and including me, we have doctors into it. We have, so data science is a domain oriented field. We want great programmers, we need great software engineers, but we also need people with domain experience, and we also need people who have a business background, business mindset, because ultimately there are big institutions which are creating the algorithms, so they are doing it, the professors and academia, but then companies like us, we use those algorithms and then we create our products, and then we want people to have a business, and then ultimately we have to sell them, and we are selling them to companies who are also business oriented. They also have a business point of view, they want to get more profits. So business is a very core idea of whole data science.